Gotta wait. It's wait. It just says wait. That's what it says. It says wait. Gotta wait. That's the That's the porpoise. Gotta wait. Oh no! What did I do? Oh no! I'm upset. I'm gonna cry. Dogs. No, it's not it. Oh my. There you go. I fixed it. We fixed it, everyone. We are back. We are back. Uh, and you will wait. You will be patient. Because it's a new year. It's a new year, new me. It's not a new year for Sunday, but it's a new year for me. There we go. Come on. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Let's see. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? There we go. Is that better? Did I fix it? I think I fixed it. Yeah, there we go. That's fixed. That's as fixed as it's gonna be. Hello, people. Hello, public. You might be asking, Envy, what the fuck are you doing at uh 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time? What are you doing up reading? And that's a great question. It's a question for the ages, but it will go unanswered. Because we need to read. We just need to read. And you might be asking, the title Envy, what evolution, Latour? What could this possibly be about? And this is actually all secretly a ploy to get me to work on an essay that I'm writing about Latour and evolution. Which I think will be good. I think it'll be a good essay. Um, I quite like it, and for that, we are going to be going over the ontogeny of information. We're going to be looking at it. We're just going to be taking a quick peek. I'm going to be taking a quick peek. The etymology of information by Shinji Okazawa, as I said in a certain side chat. That's what I said. That is what I said. I'm scared. I'm so scared. Okay, everything's fixed. But as all good things must start, we will start at the introduction. Oh my god, people scare me. I'm gonna turn on. Hold on. I have to turn on streamer mode or else I'll get afraid. I'll get afraid of the noises. The noises. I didn't mean to open Steam. Everything's going wrong. Everything that can go wrong, go wrong is going wrong. All right, but no more time for dilly dallying. We already wasted 6 minutes. Let's go into the introduction. In the Western religious tradition, God created the world by bringing order to chaos, by imposing form on an inchoate matter. He acted according to a convention that was very old indeed, one that separated form from matter and considered true essence to reside in the former. Interestingly enough, form is cross referenced to universals in the Encyclopedia of Philosophy. This separation of form from matter underlies and unites all the versions of the nature-nurture antithesis, antithesis, not antithesis, antithesis, that have so persistently informed our philosophical and scientific approaches to the phenomenon of life. That it is not a necessary one, that it is not a necessary one is evidenced by studies of creation myths from other cultures. Those who have argued over the origin of ideas in a biological beings have usually agreed that form, in some sense, pre-exists its appearance in minds and bodies. They have only disputed the method and time of its imposition. Most solutions to the puzzle of how form arises, therefore, including the most recent biological dogma, have incorporated the assumption that form is to be explained by pointing to a prior instance of that very form. To the extent that this is true, they are of limited value in answering questions about origin and development. Whether it is God, a vitalistic force, or the gene as nature's agent that is the source of the design of living things and that initiates and directs the unfolding of the design, thus matters little to the structure of the argument. Nor are the problems inherent in such a notion lessened by the use of a succession of metaphors, such as genetic plans, knowledge, and programs, to serve these cognitive and intentional functions. Okay. Um, you might be asking. You might be asking a very obvious question. Why are you choosing Latour? You are, of course, familiar with Latour, but what about Latour actually do you think gives you some special advantage in this entire process? And I have a quite simple answer. Um, for me, um, the project that I think Oyama is going about is quite compatible with a similar process that takes place in Latour. A kind of undoing, a kind of retreading, a kind of um, um, redoing, I guess, a reformation. Um, and that is the destruction of a of these two things that are considered um, necessary, compatible. Some say it's nature, some say it's nurture. Well, it's actually both, and them saying no, it's actually neither. It's not either of these things. It is not nature or society. It is not the natural or the social, the natural or the cultural, as Latour would put it. It's neither of these things. Um, Latour, in his earlier works, uses the terms of nature cultures, but he doesn't mean a combination of the two. What he actually means, as evidenced by his later writings, is actually something a bit more radical than that. Latour, it seems, was he crudely kind of started going down that path, and then either realized the bad phrasing in his terminology, or made a shift in how he wanted to talk about things. I'm not exactly sure which. The way he talks about it, it seems like it was a shift in the it was he didn't know another word, and so he used that thing as a thing. Um, he used nature cultures as a stand-in. But yeah, and that, I hope, explained my fundamental project, what we're going to be doing. And there's a great little section in a great little book called Reassembling the Social that I think, if I look into Susan Oyama a little bit more and kind of understand evolution a little bit more, um, um, I will, I'll get. No, actually. The term that replaced nature cultures was the collective. It was the collective that replaced nature cultures. That's what Latour meant when he was talking. I believe what was to be replaced. It wasn't associations. It was uh, the collective, or a collective, however you want to say it. Um, it's I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I'm pretty sure that's what ended up replacing nature cultures. Which, as you can imagine, the collective is not nature and culture. It doesn't work like that for Latour. So it makes a lot of sense that when he was talking about nature cultures, he was either the terminology was either a little bit confusing, and just he was using something he had quickly to hand, or or it represented a shift in the way he was discussing things. Uh, really not sure which. I think it's the former. That seems to be the way in his footnotes that he talks about it. So I'll take him at his word on that, um, I'm pretty sure that's the case. In an increasingly technological, computerized world, information is a prime commodity, and when it is used in biological theorizing, it is granted a kind of atomistic autonomy as it moves from place to place, is gathered, stored, imprinted, and translated. It has a history only insofar as it is accumulated or transferred. Information, the modern source of form, is seen to reside in molecules, cells, tissues, the environment, often latent but causally potent. Sorry, I might fuck up causally and casually, but I'll probably soon recognize it. Causally potent, very different things. It is thought to enable these molecules, cells, and other entities to recognize, select, and instruct each other, to construct each other in themselves, to regulate, control, induce, direct, and determine events of all kinds. When something marvelous happens, whether it be the precise choreography of an instinctive behavior or the formation of an embryonic structure, the question is always, where did the information come from? Was it already in the animal or the developing tissue? Or did it have to be put in through learning or perhaps some embryological organizer? Was selection or instruction responsible? Is this a phylogenetic or an ontogenic adaptation? Was the information acquired by the species, or must it have been acquired through individual experience? The ease with which extreme nature and nurture positions are parodied ensures that no one will stand behind either straw man. No one really argues, that is, either that livers and ideas are literally in the cell, or that organisms are devoid of structure, pristine pages on which anything at all may be written, and even a page has structure. Or to put it in negative terms, no one contends that either developmental conditions or the genes are totally irrelevant to development. Any locution that dissociates from one from the straw man, even minimally, however, seems to offer protection from criticism. Encoded potential and biological constraints that allow everyone to return to work. The pesky conceptual issues behind them. Peace apparently restored. And this is where she is going to um talk about it similarly to how Latour talks about it, about the nature culture thing. So there are three sides, we can say, for Latour in the nature culture divide. There are people who give all the power to nature, and there are people who give all the power to culture. But within that, there's actually another group. It doesn't really matter what you call them. Who say, well, a little bit of nature, a little bit of society. And Latour, like Oyama, does want to reject all three of them. He doesn't. No, you can call what you're talking about nature and society if you wish. If to keep the terminology, you want to keep these specific terms, but you don't mean that. There isn't for Latour. There isn't really a difference, I guess. And insofar as there is a difference, it's not a it's not a it's not like subject object. It's not like the subject object distinction. It's not like that. It's not the it's something else entirely. Society, the social, is not the opposite of nature or the natural for Latour. It's not the opposite. Um, Insofar as like those are treated as things within his work. Um, but conceptual issues are not detachable from empirical ones. They are there whenever one decides what to count as data, interprets them, draws theoretical or practical inferences from them, and frames the next research question in terms of a particular method. Meanwhile, disagreement is not truly resolved, even though a generally interactionist vocabulary is rapidly becoming universal. The failure of the shared vocabulary to resolve old conflicts is significant. I suggest the reason is that ways of thinking about form, constancy, and change have been left largely undisturbed. At present, all that needs to be pointed out is that these exchanges often suggest whatever the other philosophical biases of the speaker, a pre-formationist attitude towards information. It exists before its utilization or expression. And then we're on page 25, so I gotta keep that in mind. Let's see. Oh, let me go to page 5. Where is the table of contents at? No, I don't want this. Where is the table of contents? I need notes. We're just gonna go to 217. And, yep, I thought so. So we're on 240, we're on page 25. Footnote 1 In her discussion of theories of generation from the late 17th to the early 19th century, Gaskin points out that a preformationist attitude does not require outright encapsulation. Hold on. Let me look something up. Preformationist. I assume I understand what it means. Yeah, okay. I assume she is talking about this, and it makes sense with it. In the history of biology, preformationism is a formally popular theory that organisms develop from miniature versions of themselves. Instead of assembling from parts, preformationists believe that the form of a living thing exists in real terms prior to their development. Yeah, I assume that is what she's talking about. I'm not sure. Yeah. It'll be something like what you said or that, and I'm not exactly sure which, but I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. Wait, where was I? Oh, you're on 26, not 25. I'm stupid. Wait, was I stupid? I'm not stupid. I'm smart. I'm going to read that section again. At present, all that needs to be pointed out is that these exchanges often suggest whatever the other philosophical biases of the speaker. Uh, suggest a preformationist attitude towards information. It exists before its utilization or expression. Some views allow assembly of information from a variety of sources, but this in turn implies that it exists in several loci before being collected. Such views thus perpetuate the mistake while seeming to correct it. In addition, information is conceived to be a special kind of cause among all the factors that may be necessary for a phenomenon, the cause that imparts order and form to matter. The alternative to such a preformationist attitude towards form is not a classical epigenetic one. I'm actually going to mark stuff down that I'm going to need to go back and look at because I find interesting. We're going to mark it with purple. I like purple. Not only did this traditionally require that order arise from chaos, an unsatisfactory solution at best, but it often posited a vitalistic force as well to effect the recurrent miracle. 240. It would probably be like orgone, and also I assume also maybe Bergson's Elon Vital. I assume that would also be it. Again, vitalism is not a unitary, simple, or clean notion. Workers like Buffon and Maupertuis attempted to relate their internal morals and forces to physical forces, regarding them as causal and explanatory. The problem was, I'm actually going to also highlight this. The problem was to show how organic form arose in notions of specific forces acting on identical particles or of universal forces acting on differentiated particles were attempts to address it. These scientists reserved the charges of vitalism and occultism for their opponents while defending their own views as scientific. Jacob argues that Newtonian mechanics required a notion of hidden structure, of organization as the key to understanding three-dimensional complexity, and that the popularity of elementary units in late 18th century biology reflected a preoccupation with finding the biological equivalent of atoms and their attractions. This sentence is actually very interesting. We're going to mark it in yellow. A non-preformationist explanation then required a hidden order behind the visible order, consisting of arrangements of units. The idea derived directly from the corpuscular view of matter and was as much the result of logic as of empirical considerations. Corpuscular, corpuscular. That word, it sounds familiar. It sounds very familiar. What does it mean? Corpuscular view of matter is an early modern theory prominent in the 17th century, proposing that all matter and light are composed of tiny fundamental particles called corpuscles, which are small bodies with properties like shape and size, unlike truly individual atoms. Which are small bodies with properties like shape and size. Okay, so we're gonna note this down. I'm gonna look at this later. This idea derived from the Cross Review. We're gonna look at this later. Beep. I'll give myself a lot of homework. The organizing forces, then, whether actually conceived of as mental, as in Maupertuis's theory, or as more directly analogous to atomic attraction, as in Buffon, had to serve the function of an organic memory, allowing the assembly of particles into living organisms and beings that would perpetuate the forms of their parents. I'm going to highlight this. This feels important to me. Okay. The alternative to such a pre-Fermatish attitude towards form is not a classical, epigenetic one. Not only does it traditionally require that order arise from chaos, an unsatisfactory solution, at best, but it often posited a vitalistic force as well, to effect the recurrent miracle. This brings us full circle to the pre-existing form, this time ready to inform the formless rather than simply waiting to unfold. Okay, I feel like I should be highlighting these. I'm actually going to go back. Okay, we're actually going to highlight it in orange. To make things orange. And we're also going to. Can I also make it? We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it that color. Then we're also. Then we're also gonna just. There we go. Instead, it is ontogenesis, the inherently orderly but contingent coming into being, that expresses what is essential about the emergence of pattern and form without trapping us in infinite cognitive regress. Where was the pattern before it got here? The pre-existing form, instead of orderly but contingent coming into being, that expresses what is essential about the emergence. Okay. So, we're going to mark in red what I'm confused about. We're going to make a little note. Is it like previous highlight? Question mark? I don't think so. I think these two are separate, but I'm not sure. I think these... Oh, you can't see my cursor. Oh, you can. I think these two are separate, but I'm not actually sure. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. A proper view of ontogeny, however, that doesn't simply resolve into one of the old ones, requires that the idea of Ontogenesis apply not only to bodies and minds, but to information plans and all the other cognitive causal entities. More on this phrase in the next chapter, and supposedly regulate their development. Okay, and we're gonna highlight this. Okay. Yeah, that's what I think, but I'm trying to make sure, I'm trying to figure everything out. This is actually a really dense introduction. Um, I'm probably gonna go back and make notes on everything. After I finish reading this. But I really like this. So this is actually really good. I feel like I'm um getting something. Getting something. I'm not sure if I'm getting what I want exactly, but I'm getting something, and I feel like I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm gonna get there. But you have to be patient. You have to be patient. Developmental information itself, in other words, has a developmental history. It neither pre-exists its operations nor arises from random disorder. We're gonna. I just want to highlight things. We're gonna highlight this green. I like this. I like the colors. It's like a rainbow. 240. We're on 3, right? Yeah, 3. Early preformationists, in fact, ultimately relied on divine power to create all the nested forms. So the dispute in some ways was not over whether form was created, but when and how often it was created. It ultimately relied on divine power to create all the nested forms. It was not over whether form was created, but when and how often it was created. Okay, so because of this, yeah. Following. Some developmentalists use epigenesis the way I use ontogenesis. Epigenesis the way I use ontogenesis. Here, Oppenheim, 1980, Waddington, 1975. While others eschew the term because of its association with environmental determinism. And still others co-opt it for a variation of biological determinism, albeit a much elaborated one. To complicate matters further, Gruber associates ontogeny with a species-typical developmental pathway, whereas I have suggested that maturation be cleansed of its genetic determinist. To complicate matters further, Gruber associates ontogeny with a species-typical developmental pathway. Okay, we're gonna note that. Whereas I have suggested that maturation be cleansed of its genetic determinist and phylogenetic overtones. We're actually going to delete. I've suggested that maturation be cleansed of its genetic determinist and physiological overtones and applied to such typical pathways instead. Okay, and we're just gonna highlight this because I'm gonna need to parse the. So the problem is, this isn't my field. I only know about very specific things, usually relating to sea creatures, but I don't understand evolution. I'm not an evolutionist. When I was younger, I wanted to be a marine biologist. If you put a gun to my head and ask me, do you still want to be a marine biologist? The answer is, of course, is yes. I want to go to school for marine biology and also sociology of science. I would love to do that. That would be fucking amazing. I would love both. I want both. Um, I love animals. I love sea creatures. This would free ontogeny to refer to development in the most general, inclusive sense, the sense in which it is used throughout the present book. Okay, well, I'm going to highlight this. Because this is important, but I'm going to have to parse it. And I can't do it right now. I'm going to have to do some thinking and some plotting and some stuff. For some historical discussion of these issues, see Gaskin, Gould, Jacob, and Oppenheim. And then Pippa says, I think she's saying it's not the form that it's not just that form develops slash emerges according to a pre-given pattern, but that pattern is emerging too. Ontogenesis, a pattern slash information. Yes, yes, she is talking about it, I think, as a to use Latour terms, as a process that is constantly being negotiated and translated, is how I'm gonna put it. And I like this, and I like this way of talking about it, because there is actually, I think, in the things I do get, I get it because it is similar to how Latour talks about the collective, what the collective is. The collective, what happens is it's constantly being renegotiated, what it is, what it isn't, all this stuff. But I'm gonna parcel this later. I gotta parcel this later. I gotta. I'll be here all day trying to figure this shit out. Otherwise, it is neither necessary in an ultimate sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's This is what I was talking to you about, Pippa. I do think there is a fundamental compatibility between Latour and Oyama. There is a fundamental they are engaged in uh in projects um uh in a similar uh in a very similar way. It's different, it's unique. I don't think that you can say Oyama's doing what Latour's doing, or Latour's doing what Oyama's doing, but instead of with sociology, it's with biology, or instead of with biology, it's with sociology, or whatever you want to say. I think they are very much distinct things, but I think you can make them. There is a very much compatibility of terms that can be used to play with things in really weird and interesting ways that I like. It is neither necessary in an ultimate sense, nor a function of pure chance, though contingency and variation are crucial to its formation and its function. Information is a difference that makes a difference. In what it does or what it means is that's dependent on what is already in place and what alternatives are being distinguished. Yes, yes, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. Um, this is what I was trying to talk to you about, Peppa. This is how I was. This is what I meant by accident, by the way. Um, when I was talking about the accident, the necessary versus the accidental. This is what I meant. It's not necessary. It's not pure chance either. It is contingent, but this isn't uh to say that it's simply a purely random roll of the dice. It's like the game of Go. Oh my fucking god! Lab Life. It talks about Go. It's like Go. It's like Go. It's like how Latour talks about Go in Lab Life. Everything. It's like Go. It's like Go. There we go. It's like Go. That's what it is. It's like Go. It's perfect. It's perfect. I've highlighted way too much, but I have to go back through all of this and fucking mark it up. Oh my god, I have so much to say and so much to talk about. If information, along with its terminological and conceptual variants, is developmentally contingent in ways that are orderly but not preordained, and if its meaning is dependent on its actual functioning, then many of our ways of thinking about the phenomenon of life must be altered. Development can no longer be explained as a combination of translated information from the genes to make innate features and information acquired from the environment to modify, supplement, or complete those features. Nor can phenotypic features be divided into those that are programmed or biological and those that are not, or ranged at a continuum of relevant degrees of programming, at least not if programming is meant to express anything more than relative predictability in a given context. I'm going to highlight this. I have to go back. I After we got out of the first 3 pages, it seems like I'm going to be highlighting less, I hope. Because I don't like that I'm highlighting so much. It makes me feel like I'm not doing a good job highlighting, but I also feel like I'm unfamiliar enough with this stuff that it kind of makes sense that I have to. The association of biology, or in many discussion, the genes with the invariant, the intractable, or the inevitable, is a serious error, and one that must be undone. We're going to mark that too. I like that. We're going to mark it green. We're going to mark it green. Green is things I do understand, and that I like, and that I want to keep. I don't think these to be marked. The green stuff is the things I quote. The further association of nature with biology compounds it. To say that this is most emphatically, not to deny relative invariance of some aspects, the phenotype or developmental conservatism in any particular setting. It is to deny that they are the defining features of some special set of processes or characters that may be dubbed biological and distinguished from flexible ones by the role of genes in their developmental causation. It is further to deny that common is always necessary. Nor am I disputing the possibility or utility of genetic analysis or of accounting for phenotypic differences by specific environmental or genetic variation. It is the granting of special ontological status to certain traits on the basis of such findings to which I object, for this leads only too easily to conclusions about nature and fate that are neither justified nor useful. She is literally doing what Latour is doing in Reassembling the Social, but with fucking biology, and it's beautiful, and I'm watching it happen. Oh my god. That fucking way. It is, what is this? There is a thing, and it's true. But you're jumping to conclusions. For what purpose? The safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of misreadings of Descartes. Yeah, that's probably true. It is my contention that developmental information does develop, not by a special creation from nothingness, but always from the conditional transformation of prior structure. That is, by ontogenic processes. I'm going to highlight this too. Depending on the level of analysis, such transformation can be described as resulting from interactions among entities, such as cells or organisms, or from interactions within an entity, such as embryo or a family. Since sets of interactants can be at least partially nested, a change in focus is sufficient to shift from one perspective to the next. This idea that information has a developmental history doesn't arise spontaneously from nothing, but is itself prepared by empirical and conceptual developments on many fronts. Various interactionisms in psychology, aspects of systems theories, and of uh, Pigottian genetic epistemology, discoveries in molecular and developmental biology, though not much at the most general level of interpretation of these discoveries, cognitive psychology, and ethnology. 1 second, my dog. My dog wanted to be put under the blanket. Uh, it reframes some intractable problems in these fields and also offers an alternative way of conceptualizing form and causation, change and variability, normality and necessity. The notion of the ontogenesis of information is what I call developmental systems. Uh, uh, the notion of ontogenesis of information and what I call developmental systems is implicit in much that is said and done in the sciences today. But because it usually remains implicit, it coexists all too easily with its own contradiction. It is my intention to make it fully explicit, but to do so, it is necessary also to render explicit the assumptions supporting the nature-nurture complex. Once the assumptions are clear, it becomes easier to see the problems that attend them. I'm actually going to also highlight this. And we're going to give it a special color. What color do I want to give it? We'll make it blue. Because why are you blue? Yeah. Oh my god. I'm like literally only 3 pages in. Or 4 pages in. It is not a preference for the implicit, however, that has delayed full formulation of this concept of information, but rather a multitude of factors, including the conviction that scientific Darwinism requires the distinction between some notions or forms and some notion of acquired traits or forms, no matter how the distinction is made, and that the alternative is a lapse into the netherworld of non-scientific Lamarckianism. Um, I actually think, Pippa, that the notion of developmental systems might be really broad and really specific. As well. I actually wonder. Um, no, I'm not gonna make that. No, I'm not gonna make that connection. No, I'm not gonna do it. I could, but I'm not going to. Waddington remarks that Lamarck is the only major figure in the history of biology whose name has become, to all intents and purposes, a term of abuse. Though I do not intend to go into the question of what Lamarck really meant and what happened to those ideas in the history of biology, I think it is true that he has come to symbolize, partially by association with Lysenko, and therefore with everything that is seen to be internal progressive science in the enlightened world, much more than he needs to. I don't know what you mean by Spencer, not so Oedipus. This symbolic complex has made it difficult for us to synthesize our notions of inheritance. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Is this a trick question? Herbert Spencer. Herbert Hoover, our president. Expression survival of the fittest, which he coined in the principles of biology after being charged. Oh. 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 Uh, This symbolic complex has made it difficult for us to synthesize our notion of inheritance with our notions of development. My intention, then, is not to rehabilitate Lamarck or to present a Lamarckian view. Scholars disagree on what such a view would be, and I refer to him almost not at all. I do hope to show that the opposition of inherited or innate characters to acquired ones, as distinct from heritable or non-heritable variants, is based on a misapprehension of what it takes to be a properly scientific Darwinian. I'm going to highlight this. If we're all Darwinians, Simons asks, what's the fuss about? And if we're all interactionists, again, why the fuss? I suggest the fuss arises, and sometimes doesn't arise when it should, because we haven't figured out what either requires, much less how to be both at the same time. Solution that combines encoded nature with varying doses of contingent nurture is no solution at all. I'm gonna fucking note that. The question of precisely what is passed on in heredity, and therefore the mechanics and meaning of phylogenesis, is inevitably implicated in this conceptual reorganization. The conventional idea, that is, that organs, developmental sequences, and certain behaviors are transmitted in the genes, that information or rules for those organs, sequences, and behaviors are so transmitted, continues to undergo progressive reformulation as successive versions are criticized and discarded. But I submit these changes are necessarily only cosmetic, because they are not allowed to do violence to the underlying idea of inherited form or the associated belief in two kinds of development. One to manifest the form, and another for everything else. I'm going to mark this, because this is part of this is okay. Thus, we have a procession of nature-nurture oppositions based on this developmental dualism, almost as though we were generating the norm of reaction for the central concept of genetic information. One of the problems I will address, then, is the idea of developmental information in the chromosomes. What does it explain? What is it? What is it information about? What is it? Oh, what is it information about? What important questions does it or does it not clarify? When it is invoked metaphorically, and what could it mean to treat it literally? When is it invoked metaphorically, and what could it mean to treat it literally? When, if ever, does it really help understand how the living world is constituted and what the prospects for that world are? Intimately related is the problem of the meaning of biological. Insofar as biological bases have replaced innate knowledge and structure in the vocabularies of many, they have inherited, so to speak, the implications of the earlier terms, while generating them with the aura of methodological sanctity. But what does it mean for something to have a biological basis? What could it mean for something not to have a biological basis? What does this all mean for the relationship between biology as a discipline and its sister disciplines? So the first problem is the idea, developmental information in the chromosomes. We're going to mark it blue, I think. We're going to mark it blue. I'm deciding to mark it blue. Because why are you blue? Intimately related to the problem of the biological. We're gonna mark that. Because why are you blue? A third problem that concerns me is interactionism itself. We're gonna mark this. And I'm gonna come back to this later. I'm gonna kind of do a quick reading of this and work it all over. How does it manage to be virtually universally adopted and thus to lend itself to such radically different approaches? The suspicion is that it has become conceptually vacuous while acquiring the symbolic value of a membership badge to be flashed upon entry into serious discussion. Yes, I belong to the company of reasonable people. Now let's talk about the real stuff. Though interactionism is not as innocent of substance as sometimes seems to be the case, and though in fact its multiplicity of meanings becomes clear when it's examined closely. One of the reasons it serves as an all-purpose slogan is that its users often agree on more than they realize. The set of shared assumption, of course, about biological nature that can interact with environmental nature is what occupies much of my attention in the pages that follow. So we are on 241. Oh fuck, I already forgot what page I'm on. It's okay, I'll figure it out. I'm on like page 29 probably. Footnote 4. Not in our genes, Lewontin, Rose, and Camille call interactionism the beginning of wisdom, but go on to reject it for sharing many of the defects of genetic and environmental determinism. A strategic decision must always be made with respect to ill-defined but influential complexes of ideas. One can avoid inflicting another ism on one's public and try to rehabilitate the term in use with criticism and reformulation. One can abandon it and attempt to introduce a new one instead. The former carries the risk of seeing one's alterations ignored or reinterpreted to fit the existing constructs. This has often happened enough with interactionism, and one could argue that I should have deterred from choosing this strategy, but by the fruits of my own analyses. The latter choice proliferates labels that are sometimes difficult to distinguish, and that, again, may be ignored or misinterpreted. Though I have taken the first route, although Wenton et al. Have chosen the second. There is much more that unites our critiques than divides them, and the success of our shared endeavor means more to me at this point than our possible disagreements with the labels that ultimately prevail. Yeah, it is. I'm telling you, she's just. This is like reassembling the social. This is like reassembling the social, but if it was for evolution instead of what the social means. I'm telling you, it's all the same. Everything's the same. I love it. It's all the same. Everything all the time. Uh, okay, we're on page 29. Everything is like Latour to me. And it makes sense. She cites Haraway. She literally cites Haraway in her stuff, and so if she has some interaction with Haraway, I actually wonder what interaction she has with other STS people. Um, because Haraway specifically, also, and Isabel Stengers and other people specifically adopt this way of talking about things. Of it's a cat's cradle game. It's like Go. It's like this. It's like that. And there are all these things where, uh, I'm, I'm just, I love this. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love. Uh, Though a full-scale critique of interactionism will not be undertaken here, psychologists and biologists continue to explore its many faces and debate the relative merits of each. One meaning of interaction is statistical. It refers to the interaction between independent variables in an analysis of variance. I'm going to remark this. When such statistical interaction is observed, an independent variable's effect on the dependent variable cannot be accurately described without reference to another independent variable. Though it has often led to senseless attempts to partition causal primacy according to the size of interaction terms, This kind of interaction is important to the view presented in the following chapters insofar as it directs attention to the mutual dependence of effective causes. Dependence of effective causes. It's important to the view presented in the following chapters insofar as it directs attention to the mutual dependence of effective causes. The importance of this principle does not, however, require the discovery of statistical interaction in any particular investigation. This is because results reflects the conditions chosen for that research. They may or may not produce interaction terms. When the effects of a stimulus depend on genotype, actually on the phenotype, or when the effects of a gene depend on the cell's location in organism, the relativity of cause-effects relations to the context of investigation is crucial. Okay. Okay. And this is related back to this because when statistical interaction is observed, it can't just have one independent variable. It needs it needs another independent variable to help explain it. Okay. Okay, I think I'm following. I think I'm getting it right. We're gonna mark this, and I'm gonna work it out. We're gonna purple this up, and we're gonna mark it in my head later. Another sense of interaction, as I see it, emphasizes the necessity of viewing transactions between an entity and its surround as aspects of a single system. Okay, this is going to be really important. We speak of organisms altering their environments, both animate and inanimate, and being altered by their interactions. It is this mobile interchange that is being highlighted. And with that, I'm just gonna highlight the whole chapter. Sorry, chapter, the whole paragraph. Sorry, guys. It's 3 a.m. What do you want from me? Hyland suggests that interaction has too often been treated as an answer or an explanation rather than the statement of a problem for which appropriate methods of investigation must be found. Hyland suggests that interaction has too often been treated as an answer or an explanation rather than the statement of a problem for which appropriate methods of investigation. Wag, I don't know. Sorry, I can't help but keep drawing similarities to reassembling the social. Um, the social, instead of being what needs to be investigated or explained, is treated as the answer to the problem. In reassembling the social, it's one of the things the sociologists of the social do. They treat it as the answer, and in the same way, interaction is being treated as the answer and not the thing that needs to be figured out, the thing that needs to be solved. He was referring to the person situations debate in personality theory, which I discuss in the next chapter. But this description can also be applied, for example, to some research in behavior genetics. If analyses of variance are solutions in search of a problem, he concludes one could also say that the solution is the problem. See also the commentary. Oh my god, that's a fucking beautiful line. Yeah. In the next chapters, 3 fundamental phenomena of life processes will be reviewed: constancy, change, and variability. Each has been explained, completely or in part, by nature manifested in the genes, and each, when examined closely, reveals crucial aspects of ontogenic processes. In Chapter 2, constancy in living things will be discussed, and so-called genetic constraints will be seen to be a function of phenotypic structure and function and of developmental context. Okay. The mutual dependence of effective causes or reciprocal selectivity will be described as basic to the understanding of biological forms. Okay, I know what these mean, but I'm highlighting them anyway. We're going to highlight these anyway, because I want to make sure I'm getting everything down. We're also, as a good measure, going to highlight genes. We're also going to highlight a lot of stuff. I want to make sure I'm getting things down. The constraints will be seen as the function of phenotypic structure and function of developmental context. The mutual dependence of effective causes or reciprocal selectivity, we're going to highlight that too, will be described as basic to the understanding of biological forms, which are viewed as results of interactive construction, not manifestations of a pre-existing plane. A consideration of change in Chapter 3 will allow examination of the development and functional contingency of information and clarification of the way reciprocal selectivity works in ontogeny. 3 kinds of variability will then be treated in Chapter 4. And the distinction between inherited and acquired characters, information, programs, which natural selection has been said to rest, will be seen to be spurious, only with respect to the description of individuals, with respect to evolutionary change as well. In its place, the notion of developmental systems will be advanced. This idea easily accommodates multiple developmental pathways in a way that the older idea of the inherited cannot, and constancy of pathways in a way that older concepts of the acquired cannot, allowing a consistent description of ontogeny, phylogeny, and relations between them. We're going to highlight phylogeny as well. In Chapter 5, the gene as animistic metaphor, a kind of ghost in the biological machine, will be discussed in the light of the analysis presented in earlier chapters. As the metaphor takes many forms, a number of variants will be examined, and their implications and shortcomings noted. Many of these shortcomings will be traced to confusion over the concept of control itself, which is naturally basic to ordered change. A number of variants will be examined and their implications should be known. Many of these shortcomings will be traced to confusion over the concept of control itself, which is naturally basic to ordered change. Which is naturally basic, okay. Variants will examine. Alrighty. We're going to take a little brain break. I'm gonna give my brain some time. I'm gonna process all this. To make sure I get all this down in my head. I'm gonna go through this again, most of it. It's probably gonna be a lot easier the second time. But I'm trying to make sure that I don't want to speed through this. I do want to take my time with this. This isn't something I'm going to be going through fully on stream. If I have interesting developments, I might note them on stream. I haven't decided yet. But as I said, this is all towards the development of an essay that I'm going to be writing. I haven't wrote it yet. And the problem was, I don't know how evolution works. I don't. I have no clue. Besides the vaguest idea. And I want to make sure, because of the way I like to write, that I'm getting it down good. I want to make sure I'm comparing things in the best way possible. Um, and it's gonna require a lot of work. So we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be like 10 minutes. It's gonna be like a 10 or 15 minute essay, by the way. It's not gonna be that long. I'm probably gonna be able to advance what I talk about within 10 minutes, if not under it. 15 to 20 max. It's not gonna be longer than that though. It's gonna be really short. And I like my short essays. Short essays are good. They are concise and they are to the point, and that's how they should be. They're giving you all the information necessary. Like with the fucking Whitehead video that we watched in my 24-hour stream. Beautifully done, beautifully written. Yeah, it's yes, it does. And it's why I want to talk about it. Because yeah. Indiana to Oedipus, it was so good. And what was it? It was literally like 15 minutes, I think, maybe 20. It was so short. It was so short. It was like, oh my god. Oh my god. And it was so beautiful. 7. Yeah, okay. 7 minutes, yeah. And it was beautifully done. Got to the point, explained very well. Yes, so good. All right. Perhaps it is in the nature of ghosts that they should tend to linger, but this particular one, the planar coded instructions for living beings, is an especially fascinating and tenacious one. In Chapter 6, some of its conceptual sources will be suggested, and I will speculate on the reasons for its prevalence and potency. The reasons are many and varied, and I can only suggest a few, that to do with our particular philosophical heritage, the ways we think about our own actions and experiences, as well as with the history of the biological and behavioral sciences. In a more general way, the belief in genetic form and fate seems to be rooted in our desire to derive from science the answers to very old questions about what we are meant to be and what we can be. Questions that cannot ultimately be resolved by the methods of biology, psychology, or anthropology. We're going to highlight that. In this chapter, we will look into more detail at several treatments in which the notion of the biological is central, and the conceptual work of the earlier chapters will be applied to concrete examples. Alternative ways of thinking about ontogenies or to change will be presented in Chapter 7. The ways in which the informative, cognitive, and intentional or directive causal functions are integrated in the material processes of the organism-environment complex. It will not do to replace the vitalistic ghost in the biological machine with a macromolecular one. The ghost, as selector of stimuli and constraint on change, is a phenotypic one. It is the machine, and thus has an ontogenic history of its own. I don't know what this means, but I'm going to parse it later. And a headache. In Chapter 8, I will describe, in a general review organized around themes that run through the entire book, some of the implications of a view of development in which information, regulatory systems, and controls are generated, in which biological constraints, rather than guiding and limiting development from the citadel of the DNA, themselves develop. This view makes possible a shift in focus from types and tokens to phenotypes. Sorry, I feel like I... Hold on, sorry. I'm going to start that again. My brain stopped. In Chapter 8, I will describe in a general view organized around themes that run through the entire book some of the implications of a view of development in which information, regulatory systems, and controls are generated, in which biological constraints, rather than guiding and limiting development, the citadel of DNA, themselves develop. In which biological constraints themselves develop. Okay, we're gonna highlight this as well. This view makes possible a shift in focus from types and tokens to phenotypes in all their variety and transformational possibilities, from unilinear to multiple developmental pathways, from single to multi-leveled reality, from predestined epigenesis to ontogenic processes in which destiny is constructed, but never till the moment of death completed, and sometimes not even then. From the gene to the ecologically embedded life cycle, from the acquired innate distinction to differentiation, interaction and integration developmental systems, from the search for a chimerical set of biological bases to a sober consideration of normality and variation, stability and change. I really like this. I'm going to highlight all of this because I like it. I really like this section. That was really beautiful. I really like the thing she's advancing. I really like the thing she's advancing. Finally, in a chapter on prospects for ourselves and for science, I will argue that the nature-nurture distinction has had an impact on empirical and theoretical distinctions, and has sometimes directed research and interpretation in unprofitable ways. In addition, though, it has served an important mythological function, expressing fundamental assumptions and intuitions about our place in the world, the sources of order and disorder, about fate, and about what it means to be human. The concept of biological nature implies a hidden truth rooted in the past and already there, that may not always be evident in the phenomenal world. The past is usually the evolutionary past of the species, but sometimes it is more individual, as when the infant is thought to reveal the real nature of the particular person to come, a nature that is discernible because it is still largely untouched by nurture. It is thus used as a representation of, and sometimes even a commentary on, what is essential about the present, but a view of possibility that is unduly restricted by projecting some version of the past into the future, or that naively ignores the role of present structure in preparing, directing, or inhibiting change, and incapable of doing justice to the particular combination of flexibility and conservatism that characterizes life processes, including our own. My aim in this book are both critical and constructive. And with that, she shares the greatest thing with Latour. You never just destruct. You're always constructing. Most of my concerns are conceptual and meta-theoretical. This does not mean they have no empirical implications. Reader who are drawn more into applications than to principle might begin with Chapter 5, returning to the earlier exposition as the need or desire arises. The nature of the critique, however, prohibits an absolute distinction between foundation and application. In the presentation, I've tried to illustrate my points with useful examples. Oh my fucking god! This is exactly how Latour... Okay, I'm not gonna... Okay, yeah, this is reassembling the social. Wherever nature-nurture distinctions are drawn, inferences are made to all sorts of things that are thought to follow from the distinction. This is why I consider it so important to clarify both the inferences and the assumptions over the logic that allows them. They generally seem to escape criticism and are even defended because they are so fully integrated into the methodology and theory of a number of disciplines. In fact, they have often been thought to define disciplinary boundaries, a distinction that was not thought to have great theoretical and practical importance, whether about the formation and fate of individuals and species, or about the nature and prospects of society, could never have generated the kinds of perpetual battles, the ire and distress that this one has. Nor could it have persisted through so many attempts to refine it, redefine it, and rephrase it, or simply eliminate it. Another problem with trying to dispense with the nature-nurture opposition is that it is so widely ramified and so deeply embedded that we need understatement to say it would be missed. Colleagues have said, I don't know any other way to think. That this is genuinely true is evidenced by the way people declare their rejection of the nature-nurture opposition, sound the rallying cry of interactionism, then proceed to adjust genetically encoded instructions and environmentally shaped traits. Though I am acutely aware of the weary impatience invoked by nature-nurture discussions, I will refrain from offering the apologies that typically precede them. I'm convinced there is another way to think. This other way that requires reworking not only our ideas about genes and environment, but quite a bit besides, gives us both more and less than the old way. It gives more clarity, more coherence, more consistency, a different way to interpret the data. In addition, it offers the means for synthesizing the concepts and methods of evolutionary biologists and developmentalists, groups that have been working at cross purposes, or at least talking past each other for many decades. It gives less, however, in the way of metaphysical guidance on fundamental truth, fewer conclusions about what is inherently desirable, healthy, natural, or inevitable, and this accounts for a good deal of resistance it has met. Yippee! We frickin' did it! Yeah, long live the new biology. Evolution, interactionism is dead, and we are still parading around in its corpse or something. Okay. So, that was a lot, is what I'm going to say. That was a lot. It was a lot. And that was only how many pages? There was only 10 pages. It was 10 pages. It was 10 pages. Because of the introduction, because of the title of the introduction, it was literally probably a little bit under 10 pages. And so, yeah. So we're going to stop here, and I probably won't continue with you all. But this was really good. I'm really proud of this. I really like this, and I'm really glad that I could detect something useful in this. I was really worried. I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to make the connection between Latour and evolution that I thought this was. That I thought I could. But now I'm more certain than ever that I can. That I can do this, and I can do this in such a satisfactory way that there will be no question about it. There can be no question about it. It'll take a little bit. It'll take some time. We will take some time. And in between that, I promise I will get up the matters of fact and matters of concern video. But, I'm going to do this. It's a new year, new me, which means matters of fact, matters of concern comes out. I don't have the brain power to continue for right now. I might read later. I might work on some stuff later. But for right now, we're working. This is one of the many projects I'm going to be working on. I have a few that I'm kind of trying to sort out. But yes. Also, there's going to be an event in the server. We're going to be watching the Donna Haraway movie. We're going to be watching that. So be on the lookout for that. Join the server if you are not already joined, so you can watch the Donna Haraway movie with me. Because I already watched it, and it's beautiful. I watched it last night, and it was beautiful. It was great. And I loved it. And we're going to watch it again. I don't know when. I'm going to post in the server. It's going to be like not recent, not now. But I'm going to post the event. So, also, We Have Never Been Modern is going to be starting soon. After I get some stuff sorted out, I would like people to join me, if they would like, in the We Have Never Been Modern streams. You don't have to speak. You don't have to speak at all. No. That's for the next 24-hour stream. That's for the next 24-hour stream. But but we are going to I'm going to be trying to amp things up a little bit. I don't know how quickly that'll come along, but I'm going to try to amp things up. Um, I know I've been streaming a lot, and I kind of have been streaming on and off, but I haven't felt the compulsion to do it, and I haven't felt it necessary. And I don't want to just speak to you guys. I want to give you guys something that I think is good. Um, that I think is good and that I like. It's important. That's important to me. That I don't feel like I'm just yapping at you guys. That I feel like I'm either helping myself or helping you all. Those are the two things. If I'm not doing one of those two things, stream's bullshit. Stream's useless. I don't give a fuck about stream. So yeah. Good night, everyone.